Hello everyone, Jai Hind and welcome to the platform of StudyIQIAS in English. My name is Bhanwar Singh MXND 115th course and I welcome you on the platform. Now over here in this video we'll be talking about the Agasthyamalai Biosphere Reserves and the recent Supreme Court ruling about the cleanup verdict in May 2026. Now this is very important because when it comes to the preservation of the forest or preservation of the natural vegetation, so this judgment or the verdict is a kind of landmark judgment for preserving the areas or the regions which lies in the protected zones. Now what has happened is that there is the Srivilliputtur, Meghamalai and the Agasthyamalai landscapes in the Agasthyamalai Biosphere Reserve which have suffered the extensive illegal encroachments spanning over the decades. And this degradation, it has led to or it has threatened the Western Ghats structural autonomy and the continuity as well. In May 2026, the Supreme Court was acting upon the report that was submitted by the Central Empowered Committee, and again on the basis of this report, the Supreme Court have issued the sweeping directions in the case of A. John Kennedy versus the state of Tamil Nadu, demanding that there should be immediate removal of the encroachments from the Agasthyamalai Biosphere Reserve region. Now, this is the complete roadmap of the cleanup. So that is, there will be surveying where there will be deploying of the remote sensing as well as geospatial mapping to identify the non-forestry activities in the region. Then there will be an eviction plan where the state, they must submit the time-bound division-wise physical eviction plan with the officer level accountability as well. Then there is the moratorium that had been implied. That is, there is the immediate cutoff of the transport, the welfare schemes and the power lines to the illegal structures which had been come up into the region, and there will be the environmental restitution charges that will be levied to fund the active forest plantation through the CAMPA funds as well. Now, when it comes to the biosphere reserves, you must understand that biosphere reserves, there are the different zones which are created. The first zone is the core zone. The core zone is where it is the wildlife which is strictly prohibited, all right, or it is strictly protected. All right, here what happens is that there is prohibition on the human entry, there is tourism and the structures which are strictly prohibited and they cannot be come up or they cannot be made or they cannot be constructed here because of the protection of the wildlife which is protected in this particular region. Now the core region, it could comprise of the tiger reserve, it could comprise of the other reserve or the wildlife sanctuary as well. Then comes the buffer zone. The buffer zone actually surrounds the core, and here only the limited non-destructive human activities are preserved. They are permitted. Like for example, research and the regulated ecotourism. And then comes the transition zone. The transition zone is the outermost zone where we have the human settlements, we have the sustainable agriculture and co-management which are basically practiced in the transition zone. So this is how we have the different zonation that works. Now when it comes to the Biosphere Reserve of Agasthyamalai, so it spans across Tamil Nadu and Kerala. In Tamil Nadu, it covers Kanyakumari, Tirunelveli and even Tenkasi district. In Kerala, it spans across Thiruvananthapuram, Kollam and even Patnamthitta in the Kerala as well. Alright, now over here, when it comes to the Agasthyamalai Biosphere Reserve, there are key wildlife habitats or the wildlife inhabitants which are found in the complete region, including Nilgiri Tahar, which is found in the region, which is endangered. Along with we have the Bengal tiger, we have the elephants, Asian elephant, sloth bear and the grizzled giant squirrel, which is found in the Biosphere Reserve. Now there are various rivers as well. The major rivers which originate are, there is Tamira Barani, we have Achan Kolivil as well as Kallad river that originate and they provide the fresh water to the region or to the South India. Now, when it comes to the Agasthyamalai Biosphere Reserve, it was included into the UNESCO World Network of the Biosphere Reserves in 2016 and thereby it has been provided with the global conservation, monitoring and protection as well. Now, as it comes, the Biosphere Reserve, it has the Tiger Reserve or the wildlife sanctuaries which are included into it. And here you can see when it comes to the Agasthyamalai National Park, the Biosphere Reserve, it has the Tiger Reserve, that is the major tiger reserves over here is Periyar Tiger Reserve, which is located in Kerala, along with the Srivilliputtur Meghamalai Tiger Reserve and Kalakkad Mundanthurai Tiger Reserve, which is located, both of them, they are there in Tamil Nadu. Then there are wildlife sanctuaries as well which are located here. That is Kanyakumari Wildlife Sanctuary along with the Srivilliputhur Grizzled Squirrel Wildlife Sanctuary, Meghamalai as well as Tirunelveli Wildlife Sanctuary which is located inside the Agasthyamalai Biosphere Reserve that is here. Now, when it comes to the key pillars of the Supreme Court ruling that was there in 2006, so over here, there are these important things which were laid down by or which were ordered by the Supreme Court. The first thing is that there will be the action against the government servants, and it demanded that there should be the strict disciplinary as well as legal proceedings and the actions that should be taken against the 118 identified government employees who have illegally encroached upon the pristine forest land. There is also the blanket moratorium where there had been complete freeze on the welfare scheme, infrastructure and the public transport and the power lines also in the encroached areas or to the encroached areas to permanently disincentivize the illegal occupation of the region. There is also all the illegal resorts which had been built along with the hotels and the commercial tourist infrastructure in the Meghamalai. They had been ordered to be dismantled immediately. Now, for all these purposes, the Chief Secretary will be reviewing the progress monthly, and then it will be over the direct oversight by the CEC or also the Central Empowered Committee that is there. Now, when it comes to the protected area, we have the three different types of protected areas which are here in the India. And generally, we have national parks, we have the wildlife sanctuaries, and we have the biosphere reserves as well. Now, what is the difference between all the three? When it comes to the national park, here we have the entire habitat which is preserved in the region. Alright, so it is not species specific, but when it comes to the wildlife sanctuary, it is species specific conservation that happens in the wildlife sanctuaries. But then when it comes to the biosphere reserve, so over here, there is the complete ecosystem that is preserved along with the biodiversity that is in the coexistence in the biosphere reserves which are there. Now, when it comes to the national park, so human rights, there are no human rights and there is strictly prohibition of the human entries into the national park. There are limited and the traditional rights which are permitted in the wildlife sanctuary, but also when it comes to the biosphere reserve, no rights in the core and the buffer zone, but in transition zone, there are limited local tribal rights which are recognized in the biosphere reserves. Now, when it comes to the zonation, so there is no zonation in National Park and Wildlife Sanctuary, but in Biosphere Reserve, we have the core, we have the buffer and the transition zone, which are there, the three zones which exist in the Biosphere Reserves. And when it comes to National Park and Wildlife Sanctuaries, there had been, protected areas under the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. But Biosphere Reserves, they had been created under the UNESCO's Man and Biosphere or MAB program, which is there. Now, when it comes to the Agasthyamalai Biosphere Reserve, there will be the dual challenges, that is nature as compared to the livelihood. When it comes to the humanitarian dilemma, so there are many vulnerable poor families which have lived in the forest for decades, alright, in the buffer zone, and ultimately evicting them without the proper rehabilitation, that will create the severe social stress for these families. Now, the Supreme Court have recognized this as the humanitarian angle and directed that there should be, for the genuine as well as economically weak families, they must be provided with the alternate settlement lands that should be there. At the same time, when it comes to the weak environmental governance, we have seen that in the report, it has highlighted that the state local departments, they continue to extend the public electricity, the roads and the voter cards to the illegal forest settlements, and ultimately this conflicting government model, it has incentivized more encroachments into the region and undermined the conservation laws and even neutralized the forest guard efforts as well. Now, into the region, we have Vegai River, that is a very important or pertinent river in the Biosphere Reserve. Now, when it comes to Srivilliputhur Meghamalai Tiger Reserve, so it forms the upper headwaters for the Vegai River basin, which sustains the agriculture across the dire districts of the southern Tamil Nadu. There is also wide encroachment into the region and even the heavy cattle grazing that have led to the soil compaction into the region and ultimately resulting in the high runoff and even severe depletion of the groundwater recharge aquifers in the region. So you can see that this is Vagai River, which starts from Varasanadu Hills, and again it flows. It is a major river that flows in Tamil Nadu. All right, and over here you can see that it is the dry regions of the southern Tamil Nadu that it irrigates, and then it merges with the Bay of Bengal. Now, when it comes to the preservation and restoration of the biosphere reserves, so there are two of the global best practices that you must know. The first one is German Ron model. Now, in the Ron Biosphere Reserve, there is strict participatory zonation that is there. There is farming, there is forestry and tourism, which had been integrated with the active local community participation, and that avoids the forced displacement while safeguarding the nature as well. There is also the PES model, or the Payment for Environmental Services model of Costa Rica, where the local farmers, they are paid directly to protect and preserve the forest lands rather than farm them, and that have created an economic alignment with the nature. And India could utilize one or both of these global best practices for conservation of the natural ecosystems in India. Now you can understand the scale of encroachment from just the numbers. That is, there is 5,072 hectares which are under the forest encroachment in the region. And also this scale of capture that is across the Varasanadu, Megamalai and Gandhamanur ranges, it reveals that there is systemic governance issue. There are around 4,601 individuals which are operating unauthorized structures and agriculture activities in the reserve forest land. And even there are 116 public buildings which had been unsanctioned government structures built inside the core wild forest without any of the strict or the statutory environmental clearances which had been given for them. And thereby this is a major issue, and that is why the Agasthyamalai, it was basically in the news recently. Now I guess that now you have the complete idea about the issue as well as what is the core reason, and ultimately what the Supreme Court directive was and the order is, and also what are the way forward that we can have through the global best practices which we have discussed just right now. Alright, so that would be all in this video, but do not forget that we are offering you with the GS Foundation batches for the UPSC 2027 and 2028. So if you are preparing for the UPSC 2027-28, you can enroll into the batches and you can use the code that is BRS Live for the maximum discount that you will get on the platform of StudyIQ. Alright, now these courses are built upon the SMART model. That is where you get the structured classes, you get the mentorship, you get the assessment dashboard along with revision and the test series that you find on the platform of StudyIQ for your courses. Now that would be all. Thank you very much guys for joining me here on the platform of StudyIQ. Do not forget to like the session, share the session with your friends who are preparing for the civil services, and also do subscribe to the channel so that you do not miss any of the future updates. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care and Jai Hind.